Michelle Avila, who goes by Missy, so that is how I'm going to be referring to her. Now, Missy was murdered by two of her very best friends. Are you getting deja vu? Because I sure am. Why does this seem like a trend in the true crime universe? Why are so many young girls and women being murdered by their friends? If nothing else comes from this case, I hope we all learn to pay attention to who we trust. Not that we should become paranoid or isolated or anything, but just, try a little harder to know what your friends are capable of, I guess. Okay, enough said. So, Missy was born on February 8th, 1968. She lived in a town that was called Avila, California. She was raised by a single mother, and she had 3 brothers. She was described by her mother as a girl who made delicious lasagna. She dreamed of becoming a physical therapist, and she was extremely loyal to her childhood friends. Now, one day, when Missy was 8, she went out looking for her here she was with a newborn baby at 14 years old, and her best friend is not there for her. Even though Karen had stood up for Missy so many times, now where was Missy when she needed her? And she just started to resent Missy a bit. They weren't enemies at all, they were still friends. They just weren't spending a lot of time together. So anyway, Missy got herself a boyfriend. His name was Randy. And they dated about a month, and then she realized he's not for me. He's kind of like a bad boy, and no more. So they broke up. Well, waiting in the wings, there was Karen, swooped him right up. She started dating Randy, and I don't know exactly how, but the two of them got a place together. Don't ask me. I don't know how. Two teenagers and a baby, they got a place. So they were living together. And Missy winds up getting thrown out of school because her grades were bad. She was cutting classes. You know, she just wasn't doing what you need to do to stay in high school, I guess, to keep it simple. But they didn't just, kick her right out. They said, you can go to alternative school, which, if you've never heard of that, it's usually connected to the school district. It's a school for kids who are like at risk to not graduate. They do things more differently. They help the kids to get through what they need to get through so they can get a diploma. More attention from the teachers, that sort of thing. So, Missy starts going to this alternative school, and guess who else goes there now? Karen. That's a typical kind of a school for like an unwed mother to go to, or a pregnant teenager. They would go to the alternative school typically, in my experience. So she was going there, and so was Randy. All three of them are there at the school. And there's also another girl named Laura Doyle. She is a childhood friend of the two girls as well. She also lives on their block. So, the three of them start spending a lot of time together. And it's kind of a thing where both Laura and Karen resent Missy. They talk badly behind her back about her all the time, but when the three get together, they act like they like her. It's one of those scenarios. And it's kind of sad that they were jealous of her good looks and her ease at getting boyfriends and all. So, meanwhile, and she says, can I speak to Missy? And her mom is like, what do you mean, speak to Missy? Missy is with you. So Laura's like, no, she's not. See, what happened is we were heading to the park, and I said, I have to stop for gas. So Missy was like, I don't want to go with you to the gas station. Can you drop me off at the park and then go get the gas yourself and come back? So she had dropped her at the park where there was a blue Camaro with two boys, and Missy went over and started, talking to the boys. And then when Laura came back from the gas station, Missy and the boys were all gone. So she didn't know what had happened to her. So the mother, Irene, she waited all night for her daughter to come home, and by morning, Missy had not come home. So Irene filed a missing persons report with the police. And sadly, 3 days later, a hiker found her body at a place called Colby Canyon, which was like a different park though than the one they were supposedly going to. This park was 45 minutes from Missy's home, and it had a creek in it, and the creek was where her body was found. Her arms had been tied behind her back. Her hair was chopped off. She was face down in 6 inches of water with a giant 100-pound log holding her head down. And the cause of death was found to be drowning. So immediately everyone is looking for this Camaro and these boys. Karen and Laura are so upset. They're trying to help the mother. They're going out every night looking for blue Camaros together, stopping people who are in blue Camaros to talk to them and such. The two girls go to the funeral as well, and Laura even sends a sympathy card to the mother with $20 inside. Now, believe it or not, Karen moves in with Irene. She moves in with Missy's mother. She moves into her house. But that is what all the sources say, except Karen herself went start looking into that. They still don't find anything. Now, another year passes, and now it is July 1988, and this girl named Eva, who is also from their school, another friend of theirs, comes forward with the full truth. Now, it seems that Eva's brother had just taken his own life, around this time, July 88, which really moved her to want to do the right thing because she felt so much pain from his death that she didn't want Irene, Missy's mother, to have to go on not knowing. Okay, so she came forward. Now, she did not get in any trouble. I guess she must have, got a deal or whatever, but she got in no trouble for this. She said Laura picked up Missy, just as she said, and behind their car was another car that Eva was driving, and Karen was in the car as well. So the two cars headed over to Colby Canyon. Now, I don't think that Missy knew they were following her, okay? So, they go to Colby Canyon. Eva is not involved in any of the violence, okay? She is just like the driver of one of the cars. And this is corroborated later. So, the three girls get out of the car. So, Missy, Karen, and Laura. And they start screaming and cursing at Missy, calling her all kinds of names. You stealing everybody's boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. How dare you, da, da, da. They start walking further into the woods there. She's just crying and crying and crying. They start hacking her hair off with either a knife or a rock. That's what Eva said. Then they tie her arms back. They force her into this creek. They hold her head underwater for as long as they felt it took for her to, basically drown. Then they find this giant log, which they dislodged and put over her head. I'm guessing to make sure she didn't, pop back up, and come back to life. And then they left. to say that, and there was very little